I'm Walter Isaacson. It's a great pleasure to kick off this combined meeting of all the Aspen Global Leadership Network, as well as many leaders from many other groups that we've combined, as well as some of our trustees and supporters of the Aspen Institute. I can think of no better way to start than with Lynda Resnick, partly because Lynda, through the Aspen Institute and the people she's met there, have hit a few inflection points in your life, and actually, at a certain point, I think, done what we always try to do at the Aspen Institute, is help people move from whatever success they've had to being significant, to trying really hard to be part of something larger than themselves. So why don't you describe how that happened here?
Well, there was one night, and forgive me if some of you have heard about this before, but it was a seminal moment in my life. We were invited to a dinner party, Stuart and I, in the summer. It was about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was at Jeannie Rohatton's house. Her mother's here, Jan Greenberg, and I said, do you mind if I bring Michael Sandel? Now, how many in the room know Michael Sandel? He's one of the greatest teachers at Harvard, and his class, he teaches about ethics and justice in society. And I tease him that he has a lounge act, because in his lounge act, if he comes to a dinner party at your house, he might ask you very, very poignant questions about how you feel about certain things. And that particular night, we were talking about water torture and how we felt about torture, because it was very much in the news that summer. And of course, the men kind of were for torture and the women were totally against torture. And are you shocked? You thought it was the other way around, right? So on this particular night, as we talked about torture, they said, but what if it was the future of your child? Or what if you knew you could save people because a bomb was about to go off? And all these poignant questions that really made you think about your flippant answer maybe wasn't exactly how you felt. And then he told the story of Amalek, and I don't know if any of you have ever studied that, but he said, what if you lived in a town? And in that town, everyone was happy. People that wanted to be married were married, and they had beautiful children, and everyone had a job, and everyone was healthy, and the sun shone, and it was perfection. But everyone in the town knew that somewhere in that village, in a dank basement, there was a small 6-year-old child that was being tortured. And you couldn't say anything about the torture, because if you did, you had to leave the town. And that made me think. And when we were finished that night and we got in the car, I said, well, I could never allow even one child to be tortured. And my husband, Stuart, turned to me and he said, but the child is being tortured, Lynda. What are you doing about it? And it changed my life that very day. But I would never have met Michael Sandel, and I would have never thought the deep thoughts that I hope I think today if it weren't for Walter and his leadership in the Aspen Institute.
Well, the Aspen Institute was. Let Stuart stand up too, because Stuart and Lynda, as Stuart helped us, are the great agricultural landowners, pistachios, almonds, pomegranates, and things. And that got you involved in the Central Valley of California, both in terms of education, but also helping the valley. Why did you choose that?
Well, we're the largest employers in the Central Valley. And look, there's poverty and sadness all over the planet, but I felt that if I was really going to do work, I should start to do the work in the place where our employees worked and live. That would be the most meaningful. People don't know about the Central Valley. It's 44,000 square miles. It's the whole lung of California. And nobody there can breathe. And it's also the place that your fruits and vegetables come from. So, and we have trees in the Central Valley that grow the crops. And we have so many workers there. I think 5,000 at this point. So it made sense to start in the Central Valley for me.
Why did you start with education?
I didn't.
Oh, sorry.
I started in a small town called Lost Hills.
Stand up, and we have some Resnick scholars here. Lost Hills.
That's Alicia Hickson. She's part of our success, let me tell you. We started in a little town called Lost Hills, 2,500 people, 41% of the households work for our company, one of our companies out there in the valley. And they had no streetlights, they had no gutters, they had no sidewalks, they had no life. They didn't talk to each other. They were in their houses because it was too scary at night without lights on the streets. The children had no place to play after school. And so we went in and we built a beautiful park, a 10-acre park, and soccer field and basketball court with lights and a fabulous community center. But those are just buildings. That's just brick and mortar. But Alicia, we found Alicia, who was running the Family Resource Center there, and she's been such a great partner. And we partnered with the people in Lost Hills. We didn't just go in with a preconceived idea. We went in and asked them door to door, 40-minute interview with every household except for the 2 meth labs. We didn't go there. We just and we, what do you want? What do you need? And they told us. And so we did it. But I realized after a while that nothing was sustainable unless we started working on education. So that's how.
What are you doing in particular that excites you on education?
Well, we impact about 38 schools with school grants and things like that. We give 100 scholarships a year to kids, but it's our charter schools. We have a preschool and a high school. And that's very exciting. I try to work through the public school system, though, because the 38 schools that we impact are public schools, and no change in the Central Valley is ever going to happen unless we work with public schools. But we started a new program called Career Tech, which is really exciting. Noemi Donoso is here. She's our head of education. She has a lot of... Stand up for a second and let everybody see you.
Hey.
And... oh, I just dropped my whatever. So I hate when that happens, don't you? Yeah. So we realized, John Daisy years ago asked me to sit on a panel for NBC about education. I said, I don't know anything about education. He said, but you know about jobs. And so I started asking the people that run the various divisions of our company, how were they finding the right people? What I heard was alarming, that they were going offshore for things that they should have been doing in America because they couldn't find people with an education to do them. That our farming operation had to put people through 12 weeks of training in order to put them in a middle management job on the factory floor, and that we were not training people for the jobs that were available. So in the Valley, what we're doing is, and it will start in 2014, I hope to come back someday and tell you it worked, is that we have identified kids that want to go on the ag track. Ag is not what you think. It's not picking fruit anymore. It's computer scientists. It's pest management. It's water conservation. It's all, it's a business. And we will take them through high school. When they finish, we've partnered with Bakersfield College. Sonia's here. Yes. And West Hills College and 2 high schools. And these kids, when they finish high school, they will have 2 years, they will have an AA degree, and they can either go into middle management at one of our companies, or they can go on to a 4-year school.
Have you talked to John Dacey and others about this skills to the workforce type thing that we used to do in our high schools and community colleges, but we've gotten away from?
Yes, but probably not enough.
Where's John?
He's right here.
Oh, hey, Dacey. All right. Dacey is, as most of you know, head of the LA Unified School District, and it is an issue of not training the right skills now to get to the workforce. So it'd be good if we could learn from how that worked. Do you worry, it's July now, that it's 2.5 months off or whatever, that kids in Lost Hills or anywhere kind of lose so much in the summer months, and that's where a divide comes in, where kids from more privileged backgrounds probably have enriching summers, And maybe in the Central Valley, they're losing some of the learning by having 2.5 months off.
It's not just the Central Valley, it's all, well, you know, it's all of California and probably throughout the nation. What happens to these kids if they have no stimulation during the summer months? And by the time they're in the 5th grade, the children in poverty that have not had summer school can be 2 to 3 years behind by the 5th grade. And preschool is just as alarming what happens. So I wish I knew the name of that YouTube video, but there is one about the lack of education during the summer. And if you can find it on YouTube, it is startling and horrifying to see what happens. We have 6 summer schools going this summer in the Central Valley. Next year we hope to have 12, and we're going to keep going because that's at least something that we can do in many, many schools.
Well, obviously the notion of a 9-month year for schools started because of agriculture. People needed to be off in the summer and the harvest. Does that hold true in the Central Valley still, or is that just totally an outmoded concept?
Well, the children don't work anymore, thank God. We've stopped that. I mean, there was something kind of wonderful when the kids were allowed to work with their parents, but it was also not great in many other levels. And so what happened when children were not allowed to work anymore, they did nothing in the summer. Now our summer schools are overbooked. We've been doing summer school for a while, but we never had this many as we had this year. And enrollment is huge, so it's not an issue.
You know, people sometimes say, we were in one of the round tables, about the whole system of public education just being broken beyond repair. Have you gotten more optimistic or pessimistic as you looked at it?
There are days. But of course, I'm an optimist or I wouldn't be able to make it through the day, right? I'm hoping for 2 things. One of the things that I think really can make a difference is empowering the children and their parents. I really believe in this, and I've had a first-hand experience. It's just one experience, but the charter school that we have in the Central Valley, Noemi and I had nothing to do with until about 6 months ago. And it was failing miserably. And there was a great deal of animosity towards a charter school in our district. They didn't, you know, we take money away from the public schools, quite frankly, and so they didn't want us there. And so because our grades were so bad, they were going to close us down. And so I did something that terrified me at the time, but Noemi gave me strength, and we had a town hall meeting with the parents of the kids, the teachers, and I told them the truth. I made huge signs and I said, this is what Delano Public School is doing, this is what Cesar Chavez School is doing, and this is what you're doing, and you're 200 or 187 points below, and they are going to close our school. You have 4 months to get it together. You have 4 months. I only need a 7-point gain. They gave us a 60-point gain.
Wow. Now, how do they do that?
Noemi slept on the floor of the gymnasium. They got no Christmas, they got no Easter holiday, they worked after school, they worked every weekend, and we rose our scores, our API scores, 60 points. And it was just an example of, here are the customers, the kids. They don't know what's going on. I did 10 focus groups in John's schools. He was so nice to let us in, and they said to me, why are our best teachers fired? They had no idea. They wanted to blame the principal. They wanted to blame the President of the United States. They wanted to blame John. They didn't know it was the teachers union, last in, first out. Kids don't know. They have no idea of why they're suffering the way they are.
Explain last in, first out.
Well, the teachers union in Los Angeles, at least, the last to arrive could be the greatest teacher you've ever seen, but they're the first to go.
So you're laid off on lack of seniority.
And budget cuts, which we've had hideous. I mean,
Okay, so talk about the budget cuts. You've been very involved in politics in California. You're friends with the governor. Are things Why is California, which was the best educational state 30 years ago, shooting itself this way?
Well, there was Proposition 14. Is that what it was, John? 13. I always get my numbers mixed up, which is why I don't have a checking account. Anyway, and that put a lot more money in people's pockets, but it took out, we have people that have mental illness on the streets, and we have children that aren't being educated. We are 47 out of 50 in what we pay per child. What is it today? 4,900.
No, 49th out of 50?
No, 49th out of 50. So it's 58
Is it Mississippi or Louisiana? Oh, good.
Mississippi.
Not
okay.
Louisiana.
And we have, and 47th in class size, right? The average class size is 45 to 50 kids.
Why? I mean, what?
Because, and the kids said to me, why? We told them.
Did you lose control of the narrative in California about how the state had been built with a great public school system and a great university system?
I'm not really an expert on this, but what I told the kids and what I tell them is that the adults made choices. They made choices to put money in their pocket rather than support the schools and things like mental health and other health programs. And so you're right, the narrative has been lost. I think Jerry Brown is very supportive to education, especially secondary education, but he just gave us $1 billion, right? Not John and I personally, but
I'm sorry, what do you mean by that?
He put $1 billion back. We
Into
lost
education.
$2 billion. He put $1 billion back, and that's helping schools quite a bit. Mm-hmm. They've learned how to tighten their belts, but how do you teach kids when there's 45 or 50 kids in a classroom, and their best teacher is crying that day because she was fired? How do you do that?
What else are you doing in Lost Hills or the Valley that sort of surrounds education to make it more holistic?
Well, one of the things that we're really proud of is that we give free health care to the people that work for us. So even if you have health insurance in the Central Valley, by the time you drive an hour and wait in a clinic for an hour and a half or 2 hours or 3 hours to see a doctor, and then the pharmacy's closed, it doesn't matter what kind of health care you have. So we've set up 2 clinics so far, and we're going to be doing it at all of our factories, where the employees and their families get all free testing for mammograms and diabetes and every test you can think of. And then if they need, and there's a doctor on staff that comes once a week, but there's great healthcare providers, practitioners and so forth, that are there every day. And all the immunizations are free, and so the whole family can take advantage of this. And if you need medicine, you get it at a discount, and it's delivered within 24 hours to your workplace. And we've already saved some lives. It's thrilling.
What motivated you to start doing all of this?
It's just luck and privilege that I'm able to do this. I know a lot of people that are a hell of a lot smarter than I am, and they work a lot harder than I do. But I just had the luck and privilege to be born in a family that could put a roof over my head and that could feed me and send me to school. And so I realize that is my obligation as a human being on this planet, to give back as much as I can. Yeah.
But is philanthropy in your mind just something that privileged and the wealthy should do, or is there a way to spread philanthropy to being totally part of our system at all levels?
But it is, because the people, we have something called roll giving, where we give $1,000 to every employee to give to any nonprofit that they want to through the year, and then we give matching up to $10,000 for executives and so forth. But the people that give the most and that work the hardest to find a place to make a difference are the people that have the least. Mm-hmm. And when we've done fundraising for tsunami and 9/11, people would come out of the fields with change in their pocket and give it. So this feeling of philanthropy, I think we have to do much more on a higher level of Wall Street and so forth. I'm going to get in trouble. than the people that really understand because they're in such need themselves. Those are the most giving people that I've ever met in my life.
And do you get like a large percentage of people that roll your company giving philanthropically because of that?
Well, yes, they do, and they're inspired by it, but they also teach us a lot. And the reason we do this is because in the small communities around America where we are, people know what the issues are, whether they need new soccer uniforms or they need to plant trees in a certain park. We would never know that, but our people tell us. And then the amazing thing is that we find out about things because people in the valley have told us, oh, there's a great need here, and then we can go in and help. So it's been a two-way street, and it's really inspiring.
Well, let me end with the fact that you and Stuart, right at the very beginning, when we said we have to bring back all of our young leaders and give a chance to turn thought into action, and created this action forum, you not only leaped on it, you helped shape what it was, became the major benefactor. Why was this important to you, and why did this catch your attention?
Well, first of all, you asked me.
Peter did.
And so you don't ask me that much, so I figured this is really important to you.
It is.
I was lucky enough, I think 2 years ago, to come and hear some presentations and help model, the pitch with people, which was very inspiring to me. But I'm 1,000 times happier now that this happened than I was before I've really had an opportunity to meet all of you and hear some of your stories. And I'm very grateful to you once again, Walter, for giving us an opportunity to help.
Well, we're grateful to you. Thank you, Lynda. Thank you, Stuart.
Great. Thank you.